The ML Sports Platter back with you all over the major platforms. Download, subscribe, rate, and review. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel as well at ML Sports Platter. We're all brought to you by our good friends at Stanley Law Offices. Together, they'll work to get you the maximum reward. And a tip of the cap, thank you to Camillus Golf Club and our friends over at Rosie's Corner. Speaking of friends, my man Michael Tricarico joins us. He is the play-by-play voice of the Syracuse Mets. We're going to preview that season. The New York Mets. We'll get into some SU hoops as well. Michael's been so tied into the New York State sports broadcasting scene for a long time, and a Syracuse grad in his own right, and a CNS product as well. So we're going to tie in a little Breanna Stewart and some Caitlin Clark. Tricky, what's up, buddy? Welcome back.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, ML.
All right, let's combine it, right? Syracuse Mets outlook, New York Mets outlook. You know, a lot of Met fans, every year it's the same thing this time of year. They're starving. They think, then it doesn't happen. Off season's long, then they redo it, and they redo it, and they've been redoing it for, I don't know, the last 35 years. So lump in the minor, lump in the major, and what do we have?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's not a bad thing just to be going in with some low expectations. No fan base wants to have low expectations. As a Yankees fan, you want your team to be thought of as the best or one of the best. And when you go into a season with low expectations, you don't feel that optimistic value to it. But at the same time, I think it might not be the worst thing for the Mets to be going in this season with the expectations where they're at, especially because how this season goes is going to be dependent on many younger players. The Mets are they were looking to improve during the offseason, looking to sign guys, but they said we're going to give some of our prospects an opportunity this season. Guys like Mark Vientos, who's probably going to be your main designated hitter this season. He can also play some third base. He can fill in at first, but he'll be the main DH. Brett Beatty, who had struggled last season, came up with as high of expectations, I think, last year as almost anybody, and he struggled. I mean, in the minor leagues, he was a guy that through my minor league career as a broadcaster, I had seen guys like Fernando Tatis Jr., like Vlad Guerrero Jr., like Bo Bichette, and I put Brett Beatty, in terms of what I saw in the minor leagues, in that same category. Maybe not quite to that stand, but he was in that conversation just in terms of the prowess and the production that I had seen from him in AAA. And he gets the majors and he struggles, had to be sent back down. Now he's back up. Well, now he's going to get an opportunity as pretty much being the everyday third baseman. So I think going in with some lower expectations this season as opposed to last year when, that team was picked to be one of the, top teams, and then the season's not going as it's planned, and now the pressure's on some of those younger guys. Now you go in, expectation is, we might not have a great team, but I think if you really talk to those guys in the clubhouse, they feel like, they can at least sneak in as a wild card team. Maybe they can really surprise some people. And as you know, in this era of Major League Baseball, sometimes all it takes is to be one of those wild card teams at the end. And if you get hot at the right time, you got one, two, maybe a third pitcher that is hot, it is strong, and your offense clicks at the right time, you find yourself in the World Series. So yeah, I think with at least the Major League Mets, going in with the expectations at where they're at, I don't think is a bad thing. And I think they really can surprise some people. I think the pitching staff has had some question marks, but guys like Tyler McGill, who's going to get that fifth spot now that Kodai Senga's out to start the year, I think, that the depth pieces that may not be those studs, I think can certainly exceed expectations, and that can help the Major League Mets have a good season. And I think it can trickle down to Syracuse. I think we're going to have some of those top prospects like Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother, Luis Angel Acuna, who's going to be starting likely in Syracuse. You never know for sure, but some of the guys at the Major League level have said, David Stearns has said those guys are probably going to start in AAA. Drew Gilbert, who's one of the top prospects in the Mets organization, again acquired in those trade deadline deals last year that sent the Max Scherzers of the New York Mets rotation away to other teams. Those guys, I think we'll see in Syracuse, and it could be a fun year because then you throw in Trace Thompson, who's the brother of Klay Thompson. He plays baseball. Didn't quite go the basketball route, but he's played in the major leagues for many years. So you add some of those guys with major league experience. Luke Voigt, also a guy who might be, here in Syracuse. Maybe he'll wear the sleeves, maybe he won't this season, but it could at least be an interesting group in Syracuse, and I think at least some names that people like the Luke Voigt will at least have heard of before.
Couple of tidbits off what you said. You nailed it. I mean, across the board. Number one is you get hot, you get a wild card spot, you get in, and anything can happen. And that can happen in sports across the board. But it seems like it is more of a popular thing in baseball where 162 games, you have a 20-game stretch that's bad, you get hot for 10, you have a bad fiver, you get hot for 15, and it goes forever. And then you're, you're 89, 90 win team. But you know what? We got a couple guys. We got Nolan Wheeler in Philly. You're a wild card team. You go 7-gamer. I don't want to play them in 7 games. The offense is really good, but it's the pitching in a 7-game series. I don't want to deal with that. And you mentioned with the Mets coming in under, okay, yeah. Also, the division's a challenge. I mean, the Braves are there. They have consistency in the front office. They have a million guys locked up for a long time. Same kind of thing with the Phillies. So the challenges are there. And I think there is something in that Acuna. Oh, my God. If he's anything like his brother, look out. I think there is something to be said, though, too, in the minors right now, Michael, right, where the game has changed, right? They kind of shrunk the minors down. Is there more of – I always thought that it was always really pinned on the AA, the best prospects in AA, and then they just shoot to the minor leagues, right? You remember a Bobby Jenks, you remember a Jabba when he was hot, and a lot of players jump AA bigs. It does happen AAA bigs, but that AA extra sort of, I guess, microscope on it, it's not as much, right? Isn't it kind of more leveled out to AAA? Am I wrong here?
No, I think you make a good point. I mean, heck, Pete Alonso was a guy who had spent some time in AA. We thought we might in 2019 when the Mets affiliation was in Syracuse. We thought he would at least maybe start in AAA with Syracuse. And all of a sudden, he has a great spring training, and the Mets say, "All right, you've earned your spot on the major league team." And yeah, I think during the season, I mean, we saw that at times, especially when it was the Nationals affiliate, where their AA affiliate in Harrisburg was slightly closer to Washington. Now, of course, that was maybe more for rehabbers, but yeah, I think at the same time, the shrinking down of the minor leagues has definitely changed the landscape. I think you do have players and younger players at that who are moving through the system a lot quicker. You don't have the luxury maybe of keeping some other players around that may be more projects or, maybe those more diamonds in the rough. We had back just a couple of years ago, we had some guys who were, 39, 40th round draft picks who an organization can keep around and see, is this guy going to develop? One of those guys, Adam Aller, he was going to retire from baseball. His parents convinced him to play independent baseball for just one more summer to have some fun. And a month later, he's signed by a major league team to a minor league contract. And 1 year after that, he's making his major league debut. So when you have more teams and you have more players and spots available, you can do stuff like that. But nowadays, I think guys are moving so quickly. The Angels had one of their draft picks last year. He was drafted last season out of college. He made it to the major leagues the same year he was drafted. I think that would be unheard of even just, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think guys are definitely moving a lot quicker through the system. And I think you are seeing a lot more, a lot less jumps from AA to the majors. You're seeing more development in AAA. Ronnie Mauricio spent pretty much all of last season in AAA, even though people were, clamoring for him to be up in the majors. So you see that a lot more for sure.
Yeah, I actually like it. I think it's great to have kind of a leveled out at both. And we'll kind of keep an eye on that, certainly in baseball moving forward. Syracuse Mets voice, Michael Tricarico, with us also around the state doing his thing, reporting, broadcasting. It's pretty pinned on the entire sports scene around here, including your alma mater, Syracuse University, which I think as we have talked, I don't know, there's another 3,000 Division I players that maybe just enter the transfer portal. I don't know. I mean, it is a wild world. Quadir Copeland in, Justin Taylor in. We'll see who Red can get. It's just, this is how it is now. I'm not saying that I like it. I think there's a couple of decent things with the world the way it is because the players have choices. They can go make money, the NIL. When everybody else is making money, the ADs, the head coaches in the universities, why can't they? Okay. But then you look at guys like us, it's hard to keep track of rosters. There's no consistency. I don't know. It's just all over the place. Balls are in the air. Two-part question. What's next for SU basketball? I know it's a very big question, but what's next for them one way or the other? Take it however you want. And do you think that there is a positive somewhere with the NIL and portal, and you have teams rejecting the NIT like my Bonnies? It was found out, I guess, last night. I know you probably caught my video. I think there is a difference between a Michigan State and a Bonaventure, a Cuse and a Bonaventure saying no or yay to it. But I'll let you answer there on the world that we're in college sports and a little bit of the future of Reds team here in Central New York.
Yeah, I mean, to start with Syracuse, I think two things can be true. First of all, you're Syracuse University basketball. The expectation is if you don't make the NCAA tournament, the season was in part a failure. I think, for teams like that, you want to be playing in the NCAA tournament. You need to be playing. You've set that standard for yourself. You're one of the winningest programs of all time. You have that history and you have that pedigree. At the same time, while the expectation, and if you don't make the NCAA tournament, maybe you can consider it a failure, I think, given what this season had, the fact that Red got this team to 20 wins, I think it was at least somewhat impressive, especially given what the expectations were and the uncertainty of it all. And you have a first-year head coach coming in. So, some people, this season was a failure. But they got to 20 wins for the first time. I think you can at least balance each of those things where, hey, the expectation is we need to be playing in the NCAA tournament. On the other hand, to get to 20 wins, with the type of team you had, and, you hear some of the, second and third hand sources, at least at my point, and it sounds like there was a lot of dysfunction, which kind of lines up with some of the even things that we just saw on the court, and Benny Williams being dismissed from the team, and even just some of the complaining and just the type of things that, I think the fans and, people in the media could at least see with their own eyes. Some of the stuff that now is starting to come out at least makes a little more sense in terms of some of the dysfunction with the team and, how some of the players leaving, not all of the guys leaving, but some of the players that, have already entered the portal or will enter in the future, it comes down to sometimes this is just, a player decision wanting to move on. And other times it also has to do with a head coach and Adrian Autry and his coaching staff saying, I want to create a certain culture with my program. And some of the guys just don't align with the culture I want to bring. And hey, we'll agree to part ways and move on from there. So I think this is going to be a big offseason where, Red came in, he gets to 20 wins. I think there was certainly some positives to take. I think the unfortunate part, you see some of the, when you talk about culture, the defense and just not exerting the type of effort you might expect when you're in some must-win games, at Clemson and against NC State in the ACC tournament. But now it's an opportunity. You got two talented, it seems, freshmen coming in who have, very high ceilings, very big potential. You might be able to keep around some of the guys you want to keep around. And now around that core, you get to go into the portal and you get to get your guys. Last year, you were hurt, I think, mostly by Jesse Edwards going into the portal so late. So now you're behind the eight ball trying to find a center. You end up with Naheem McLeod. You could say what you want, but he was also hurt. We'll see what happens with McLeod this offseason and in the future. But now, no excuses. You didn't go to the NIT. You're able to get into the portal right away. You see who's available. And this will be the biggest offseason, I think, for Syracuse and Adrian Autry in a while, to go out and get the players you want as part of the program to build your culture moving forward. And then as far as NIL, it's better for the players to an extent. I mean, look, anytime you can make some money off your name, image, likeness, I think that's certainly a positive. I think it's going to hurt some players. I think it's maybe often underreported, the guys, whether it's Division I or even, Division II, if you have a scholarship and you enter your name in the portal, I think it was something like at least 50% of those players who were in Division II who had a scholarship put their name in the portal didn't have a scholarship on the other side of the whole process. And the similar thing for Division I. Some guys put their name in the portal, and there's a lot more players available than spots, and some people are going to be hurt by that. Is it better for the game? I don't really think so. I think, like you were saying, there aren't those massive stars anymore. And part of it is, one and done or two and done and guys aren't around in programs for so many years, but at least sometimes you had, even if you had guys going into the NBA draft, you still had guys who would stick around for 3 or 4 years and you could develop. Someone made a good point, I think I saw yesterday, about Virginia. Tony Bennett, some of his best teams were because he could keep guys around for 3, 4, 5 years and develop them in his program how he wanted to. And he really hasn't been able to do that as much recently. I think, that was something that hurt Coach Boeheim, Jim Boeheim, for these last few years, is that, you got a Kadari Richmond who, man, if he sticks around for another couple of years, how nice would it have been to have him? And okay, well, you don't get Judah Mintz, but you still have Kadari Richmond who is doing really great things. So, Deion Waiters back, if the transfer portal and NIL was a thing back when he was playing, I mean, already he was thinking about leaving the team in the middle of the season. But if the portal was a thing, who knows what he does after his freshman year? And well, it has its pros, but it definitely has its cons, this NIL. I'm not sure if there's a great way to fix it, but I hope something happens. And maybe that's something we can try and fix all the world's problems at some point. But that's a long conversation to be had at another time.
Yeah, it really is. I think another good thing about NIL/portal, whether you want to keep them separate or link them, is you have guys coming from smaller schools, and no disrespect to the smaller school or smaller name. It's funny, people say smaller school, but sometimes, say, well, UB is a small school. Well, student enrollment, it's bigger than Syracuse by a good bit, right? But it's a smaller name. It's a smaller brand. So people just equate it to it's a smaller school based on basketball is what I'm saying. But you have like a Dalton Connect, Northern Colorado. He's a good to really good player. He's starting to all of a sudden he goes into the portal. He goes to Tennessee, boom, and there's people who might have Tennessee, going to the Final Four just because of him that he can carry him. So it's a wild world, man. I got about 90 seconds left with you, 2 minutes here maybe. Caitlin Clark is insane. And I'll tell you what, I think Deasia Fair is as well as Central New York. And for the people who might listen and go, wait a minute, because we've heard a lot of that too, where she hasn't gotten the national exposure. And I agree with that. She deserves more. The 5th all-time leading scorer. You've got to be kidding me. What a year she had for the Orange. But Caitlin Clark is an all-timer as well. And she's the leading scorer in the history of women's college basketball on all platforms at this point. It was one, and now it's all of them. You saw Breanna Stewart up close and personal. You covered her career at CNS. You went to CNS. How much of this reminds you of Bree? And when you watch Caitlin Clark, what do you see? Because you're a big basketball guy. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I see someone in Caitlin Clark who just the type of game she plays, it's exciting. It's different. When she's taking 30, 35-foot three-pointers, I mean, think about the shot she took to break the scoring record. I mean, it was just Caitlin Clark-esque, just a 35, 40-foot shot. she nails it. And, that's the stuff when you don't have the dunking in women's basketball. I mean, to have someone who is electric like that, it draws attention. And I think what Caitlin Clark and it's, social media certainly was a thing when Breanna Stewart was playing and people were talking and they won 4 straight national championships. I think this is just Caitlin Clark is the right person for this moment. And maybe if, I think if Breanna Stewart was playing now with the popularity of women's sports and women's basketball in general, maybe we would talk about her as being, that type of electric star. I think Caitlin Clark, just with the way she plays, is that right player where it is exciting like that. I still will say, and of course I might be a little bit biased, but I do think in terms of an overall player, and people talk about greatest women's player of all time, I think at least for college, I think it has to be, Breanna Stewart. Look, she played on those UConn teams where they had all of the stars, and maybe there was a little less parity in women's college basketball at the time. But I just think in terms of, Breanna Stewart could shoot it from the outside. She could handle the basketball. She could, bump with bodies inside. She could hit the mid-range jumper. Her game was, I think as well-rounded as you can get. And that's nothing to take away from Caitlin Clark. But I know there's people that are, who's the best player of all time? I would give the edge to Breanna Stewart. I'll admit I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think just overall what she can do from the outside and the inside. But look, Caitlin Clark still has a run to make in March. and still has a pro career ahead of her. So we'll certainly see what happens with that. But yeah, Bree was someone who could turn it on at any moment. There was a quick story when I was still in high school. We were doing a basketball camp on the boys' side, and it would always be the current high school basketball players against like the coaches or the alums. And it was the year after Bree had graduated. Her brother was playing at the camp, and she came in and she was in this coaches game. So at the coaches game, the us high school kids, like we had only won probably like once or twice in like 40 tries, and we've got a 7-point lead with like a minute to go. And Bree had been playing, but she was like, all right, kind of letting everyone else have their fun. And then that last minute, she comes down and goes 3-3 pull up jump shot, and a 7-point lead just like that is gone, and we lost the game. But
I
but
love
that's
it.
just who she was, and she is one of the nicest people you could meet.
Yeah.
So couldn't say enough about her.
You could argue. I mean, you go just the UConn. You go Lobo, Taurasi, Sue Bird, Bree Stewart. Then you go to Tennessee, and you got all the Holtzclaws and all these other players. And now Caitlin Clark. And by the way, the women's game right now is awesome. If people don't get a chance to watch, it is precise. The passing, the fundamentals, the talent, the teamwork. It's really, really good. I don't watch a lot of it, but just what I was able to see at the Dome and then flipping on here and there, it's been really, really good. Michael Tricarico, you're the man, Syracuse Mets voice, and of course on the pulse of New York State sports across the board, talking some SU hoops and a little Caitlin Clark and the Bree Stewart connection there as well. Appreciate you, my man. Hopefully I'll see you at the ballpark a couple of times this summer. I like the beard, by the way. Keep the look going, and we'll talk real soon. I can't wait to see you again, my man.
Yeah, you might see me a little bit different in a few days or in a couple of weeks, but hey, looking forward to seeing you at the ballpark, and always a pleasure. Appreciate it.